If you're wondering, you gotta pay. You gotta pay. Last thing, I'll tell you what, it's, if it hasn't gotten the last meeting, we were here, I was dying. I was just trying to,
I looked in the shirt and I couldn't.
I was so glad when the meeting was over.
All right, I'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the Perry Municipal Authority for January 22nd, 2013 at 6:15. Roll call, please.
Stroller.
Here.
Dement.
Here.
Duke. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Norman. Nation.
Here.
Wade. Warner. Here. Hall.
Here, we do have a quorum present. I did receive word that that Councilman or the authority member Norman was feeling under the weather and probably wouldn't be here, which I'm grateful that he wouldn't come if he doesn't feel very good. Yeah, so he's probably doing us all a favor. And Mr. Wade, authority member Wade, is watching his son in his senior year of wrestling, so he won't be with us this evening. At this time, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is the opening prayer conducted tonight by Martin Foster. Martin, we're glad you're here. If you just go to the podium, if you would, please,
All right.
and lead us in our word of prayer.
Okay. Lord, we thank you and praise you so much for your love and your grace, and we thank you for our homes and this community in which we live. Thank you for the opportunity to serve, and we ask, oh Lord, that you give us wisdom and the decisions that we have to make, and let everyone be heard and appreciated. Lord, we thank you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
At this time, we'll move to item number 1, the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, which were to receive and approve the minutes from the last PMA session.
Motion to approve the consent.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the consent agenda. Roll call, please.
Stroller.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Duke. Yes. Johnson.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes, now we move to item number 4, comments from those assembled. Anybody wishing to make comments during the PMA authority meeting can certainly do so at this time, as long as it's not on our agenda. Yes?
My name is Seth Brooks. I'm the president of the Pirates Mini Motorcycle Club here in Perry. I present to you today a proposal from my club for the restoration of the creek area at 3rd and Cedar. I present this report to you in hopes that the situation I've witnessed will affect you in the same way. At the corner of 3rd and Cedar Streets right here in Perry, just behind the old House of Prayer, there lies a deplorable environmental situation. There are no less than 15 vehicles strewn about a valuable watershed to 2 different natural creeks, and a tree has fallen, endangering the home next to it. It is literally feet over this tree, and the only thing supporting this fallen tree are several small spindly trees. There would surely be in a lawsuit that would accompany that, I'm sure, if it was to fall and destroy that home. I don't know who it would be on, but I'm sure that someone would be upset. The creek in this area has also fallen into disarray. Metal's been carelessly discarded in the stream itself and along its banks. On my visit last week, I witnessed that someone's pet, a dog, had died and had frozen into the creek. I had to walk away. It was too much. Lead paint and heavy metal oxidization from these vehicles is dumping in, and the dumping is contaminating our groundwater, creating an eyesore. And the vehicles themselves create a dangerous situation for the youth of Perry, who will no doubt go into this area to experience nature, natural settings, things like that, things that kids do. I propose the area be restored to a natural setting, free contamination. I've outlined a plan and organized my club to accomplish this task at 0 cost to the city. The metal will be removed and properly recycled. The dead and hazardous trees will be removed and used as firewood to be distributed to among several people I know who are needy and only use firewood for heat. We will also remove the obstructions from the creek itself, which is going to reduce the amount of stagnant water and reduce the breeding grounds for mosquitoes this upcoming spring. I ask that you allow us to do this and restore this area to give something back to the community. We love this community. This is our home. And I think this would be a great way for us to start showing how much we appreciate the community. I do have pictures of this proposal I would like to present to the City Council for viewing. These are the most damning pictures of this situation, and I really hope that you approve this and let us, if I could present this. Excuse me. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Before you sit down,
Yes,
let me
sir.
just, there's a couple of observations that I have. And first of all, let me say how grateful I am that you came tonight. And I think I speak on behalf of the entire authority. It's rare that we get comments outside of our agenda. And I think that this is the process working at its best. And so I think your presentation was clear and distinct and very much appreciated. What I'd like to ask tonight is, obviously, since we've just been presented this for the first time,
Exactly.
I would like to ask you to coordinate additional discussions with the city manager, Ms. Rupp, and really outline your plan. I think on the surface, it has a lot of merit, and it may in fact be warranted. I'm sure Mary would call in code enforcement and get all of those parties working together. And if it requires further consideration by this council, we'll certainly take it up as soon as possible.
Right.
But we will give this our undivided attention. And Mary, I'm sure will be in contact with you and work on a solution. And I think we're grateful, very grateful, that you have a desire, along with your group, to come in and recognize and see a problem that needs fixed and propose a plan.
My group is mostly, it's either people like myself who have previously been in trouble and are changing their lives, or it is troubled teens, foster kids who grew up without parents. And, you know, we're just trying to come together and better ourselves and better the community we live in. Because we see things that, you know, some people don't see, and that's all we'd like to do. So thank you, and I really hope that you approve our proposal and we can work together.
Does anybody on the authority have any comments or questions of this gentleman?
What is the name of your group again?
The Pirates Mini Motorcycle Club. We're a small motorcycle club and community advancement organization. We ride small motorcycles, and, you know, that's improve the town we live in. We try, you know, anything we see wrong, we do what we can to help improve.
Did you have phone number and contact numbers in your proposal?
I do not have contact numbers in my proposal. I can give them. I believe Chief has them. I'm in contact with him periodically. I can, but I can provide that, no problem. Yes, ma'am.
Your name is Seth Brooks?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
correct? Okay.
Do you know if that is Perry property or does somebody own it?
I have been told it is that it is city property. The vice president of my motorcycle club looked into it, called City Hall, and they said that it was city property. And that was why we came here. They said that that they didn't think there would be a problem, but just to present it and see if there was any quarrels.
Very good. Well, Mary's got a card for you, and if you would get in contact with her and work through that, and if it needs to come back before this body for certain approvals, we'll certainly address that at that time, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Additional comments from those assembled? Additional comments from those assembled? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5, proclamations, commendations, reports, and inquiries of the governing body. Very well, seeing none, we'll move to item number 6, discussion of continued participation in the OMPA's competitive utility program, otherwise known as CUP, and take any action deemed necessary. Council members, authority members, most of you may or may not be completely familiar with the competitive utility program. Back in 1992, there was a big move to deregulate the utility, the electric industry in our country. And of course, OMPA being owned by its members, felt like that a drive or a push should be put on to really teach its members how to operate competitively their utilities. And that means how you market, how you sell your service, customer service, reliability, all those things. And so they put together a program, and it's contained here in this 3-ring binder of the competitive utility program, or the CUP program. And then to encourage member cities to be a part of the competitive utility program, they offered a reward for those that participate in the program, and that reward is $20,000. Annually, you have you've seen big presentations. OMPA has these nice big checks and creates a big photo op for authority members and the mayor to be able to receive this check saying that we're a member of the competitive utility program. Well, I've been on the board of OMPA now for a number of years, and I had to stop and think about this for a minute, that nothing could be that easy, that we could just participate in a program and get $20,000. So as I dug into this a little closer, and as you know, we've had staff members that have done the work associated with the CUT program, but I didn't really have any idea what it entailed. What I found out was that actually the municipalities that are members of the OMPA are actually all the members, whether they participate in the CUT program or not. There's an adder placed on our city utility bill, not the individuals, but on the bulk city utility bill that covers the cost of the administration of the CUT program per city. And so I thought, well, isn't that interesting? And as I dug into it a little farther, depending on the size of your city, and of course OMPA has members ranging from as large as the city of Edmond down to as small as Orlando, and every city in between. And for our guest here tonight, that's Ponca City down to Altus. There's a total of 40 members in member cities in the OMPA. Our particular charge is running $17,000 a year. So we are investing $17,000 into a program that we get 20 back. And it has taken an enormous amount of staff time to be able to comply with the requirements of the CUT program. And in talking with Mary, it kind of seemed to me that maybe we ought to evaluate the value of that. When you cut through all of the stuff, what it boils down to is that this community, along with most of the communities in the OMPA, are doing the work that the competitive utility program wants and asks you to do. But what we're having to do then is turn around and document the fact that we're doing the work and send it back to the OMPA to get our award. And that's what's taking the time. I took that to Charles Lamb, the chairman, my concerns. I took that to Charles Lamb, the chairman of the OMPA. And I said, Charles, I don't understand the value in this. And I'm going to be pitching to our authority members to really consider whether or not to participate in this program because of that value. He was actually around and on the OMPA board back in 1992, and the board has not addressed the CUT program since. From a fundamental, do we need to have the program? Because now that we've weathered through the deregulation of public utilities, most of us understand that there are certain things that we have to do if we're going to be competitive in this market. And due to us having good longevity, due to the OMPA being successful, it becomes necessary to look to see if there's true value in the program. What Charles has brought to the table as chairman is during the strategic planning session that will be conducted in a couple of months with the OMPA, this is going to be an entire afternoon session related to the value of the CUT program to our member cities. And so what I wanted to do by placing this on the agenda tonight is just make you aware that your staff is looking into this from a dollars and cents perspective. Is it worth spending the dollars, and does it make sense? And then working with the OMPA as they go through their strategic planning and they study whether or not this kind of program is necessary. I want to be able to report back to you what they came came up with. And if you have additional questions related to CUP, it kind of gives you some time over the next couple of months to kind of get familiar with it, so that if in fact we do come back, there are certainly values to the CUP program. I don't know that it's worth it from a dollar perspective, but you as members of the authority may determine that it has value as it relates to the service standard that comes with being a member of the CUP program. And so just know that we have this manual. Dixie has it there in the office. If you need copies of it or a better understanding or want to look through it and see what it entails, let me encourage you to do so over the next couple of months, and we'll bring this back and talk about it. But I just wanted to float it out there as something that we probably should take a look at. In the past, we had a staff member that was dedicated to compliance with the CUP program. We no longer have that staff member, and actually it was Mary that that said, look, we really need to take a look at where we put our staff and what they're doing, and are we getting our money's worth out of the time that they're putting into this program. So I wanted to just kind of put that out there. Be pleased to attempt to answer any preliminary questions you might have, but this will be coming back following the strategic planning of the OMB. Questions, Betty?
As it stands now, though, whether we go along with this or not, we're still going to be spending the $17,000.
As it stands now, that's correct. And the question is, how much time does it take for our staff, to do this? And Russ has been putting together dollar figures associated with the staff time and the hours. And I can tell you that we can readily equate about $10,000 of staff time that it takes to comply with the CUP program. So my hope is, and this is one of the good things about being a member of the OMPA, is that we as an authority have a voice, around the table. Imagine if we had this situation with a public utility. If you could go to the chairman and talk to him about your concerns. So my hope is to be able to take this to the strategic planning session of the OMPA, and just express to them that with the staff time, with the required adder, and you start adding those dollars up, are we really getting the value back, and encourage them to make that a voluntary participation and not a mandatory participation. Okay. Other questions or comments? Not looking for any action tonight, just want to give you a heads up. Okay, item number 7, new business. Any new business needs to come before the PMA? Seeing none, I'll entertain item number 8.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Mark. We have a motion second to adjourn. Roll call, please.
Strutler.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Duke.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Warner.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. Okay, I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Perry for January 22nd, 2013. It's 6:33. Roll call, please.
Strutler.
Here.
Dement.
Present.
Duke.
Here.
Johnson.
Present.
Norman. Nation.
Here.
Wade. Warner.
Here.
Hall.
Here, we do have a quorum present this time. We'll move to item number 1, consent agenda. Items wishing to be removed, we'll take those.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Brett. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Will there be discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Strutler.
Yes.
Dement.
Aye.
Duke.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Nation.
Yes.
Warner.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. Now we move to item number 4, comments from those assembled. Anybody wish to make comments on items not on our city council agenda? We'd certainly take those from you. Comments from those assembled? Comments from those assembled? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 5, proclamations, commendations, reports, and inquiries of the governing body. Proclamations, commendations, reports, and inquiries of the governing body. Just one quick one, and it shouldn't surprise anybody because we hear this kind of stuff all the time, but I just think it's neat for you to hear this kind of stuff. I had a very, very distant family member that was buried today at Grace Hill Cemetery. And we had some very, very, very distant family coming in from Texas. And they got to the McDonald's and asked somebody how to get to the cemetery. And they just happened to be a local person. They began to, go to the second light, turn right and go this way. And my family from Texas gave them that look like you would expect if you were a strange town that we don't know what you're talking about. And that person got in their own car and let them out all the way to the cemetery. And my great aunt told that story about 25 times at the cemetery. But it's just, you expect that, I think, out of Perry people. That they would just take time out of their busy schedule and take a stranger and lead them out to where they need to go. And I just thought it was an interesting story, wanted to share it. All right, other proclamations, commendations, reports, inquiries of the governing body. And I don't know the name of the person that did it. They didn't catch the name, so whoever you were, thank you for that. All right, we'll move to item number 6 to receive the city manager's report. Mary, you're up.
Thank you. Before I get into the items on the list, I just wanted to welcome Christy Conrad. She's our newest city employee. She's working at the front desk along with Carol Allen, and she is settling in quite nicely. She came to us from Pizza Hut, so had a lot of experience working with people, so a lot of people know her. They come in, and I hear a lot of the conversations from my office, so we're real happy to have Christy on the staff and working for us and with us. Item number 1 on the list, the airport house, the one that's used for someone to live there and provide security to the airport. Unfortunately, it burned down, as everyone knows, and had a space heater too close to something, and so anyway, it was a total loss. Insurance adjuster has been there and signed off. The street department helped the airport staff in clearing, and so that's already been cleared out, leveled, and we appreciate all the effort that the street employees put into that, quickly taking care of what remained, which wasn't a whole lot. We do expect the insurance claim to come through fairly quickly and receive reimbursement for the amount that the house was insured for. It was a total loss, and so that should be coming in within the next few weeks, I would expect. Item number 2 is on the water supply and bulk water sales. As everyone's been hearing around the state, different communities are concerned about their water supply with the extended drought and no rain. And so we felt it was prudent to take a look at our own water supply and do some evaluation of that. We're not at the point where we're wanting to ration or do anything to that extreme, but there have been, we've had lots of customers at the water treatment plant filling up their tanker trucks, and effective February 1, we're going to shut that down. And so we've given notice to all those companies that are currently taking water from at the water treatment plant, and they've been good consumers of water, and I'm not certain exactly where they're going to obtain that amount of water with the current situation with all the ponds and creeks and everything pretty dry. So we thought long and hard before we made that decision, and feel like it's the prudent thing to do at this particular point in time. We do have some written agreements for bulk water sales. We're going to continue to honor those agreements for the time being, but we'll evaluate as time goes on, and we determine whether or not that we should continue to honor those or give notice and terminate those agreements. Last week, Matt Mears and I attended the City Management Conference, City Managers Winter Conference in Stillwater, and it was a great turnout. I think there were about 100 people registered, which is, it's just growing every year. But managers from all over Oklahoma were in Stillwater. And it's always a great opportunity to network. The session topics were good, but it's the sharing amongst the managers that really helps understand. You know, you have a particular issue, you ask somebody else if they've had that issue, and more often than not, there's someone that has, and so share information and get to know. We've, you know, had some professional development sessions on the agenda, as well as some other technical sessions like fraud in your workplace and that sort of thing. So that's, you know, it was a variety of topics, and I thought it was a great conference, and appreciated the opportunity for Matt and I to be able to attend. Perry Utility customers received notice in their utility bills about their drinking water, and this past, the ones that they received a couple weeks ago, I guess it was. I just want to say that at no time was there a failure of any plant equipment or any operational error that occurred. Just want to assure that our public, our citizens, that the issue that was noted was the turbidity, which is a technical word for cloudiness of your water. And so turbidity really has no health effects, and so I want to assure everyone that our water is very safe, and to continue to feel confident that our water is good, and we want you to keep drinking. On to the next item, we do have a couple of questions on the spring ballot. One is the increase in the hotel tax from 5 to 8, and the other is the residency issue. And if there are groups out there who are interested in having speakers talk about those questions, just feel free to contact either me at City Hall or the mayor or any of the council members as far as that goes. I'm not committing you to speaking, I'm just committing to have you can pass along to us any requests. So anyway, there are lots of groups, and we'll be trying to make the rounds, and if we don't hear from them, we'll contact them, right? Because we do want to get the merits of those questions out in front of the voting public. Lastly, on the list is safety initiative. The city is working on, has initiated a safety initiative. That doesn't make sense, does it? Anyway, Matt Biswell is spearheading that effort, and had a safety committee meeting last week. We're utilizing primarily free resources from Meridian Technology Center and OMAG, our insurance provider, to address some issues. Matt's working on a safety manual for the employees, and involving the departments and reviewing sections that pertain to their area. So I'm really pleased to see this. I think the safety culture is one that we want to encourage, and hopefully it will result in reduced workers' comp injuries, so that employees are at work and working safely, and also on the financial side, so that we don't pay as many claims as we maybe have been in the past. So with that, I would end my report for the meeting.
Questions of the city manager? Questions or comments by anybody? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 7, which is to receive the Chief Financial Officer's report. Russ Meacham, Russ, you're up.
Man, guys, I hate to tell you, but we're halfway through this fiscal year. Matter of fact, Mary and I this morning were just talking about budget for next year and getting started on that process. I know that just makes Betty in particularly happy. It's the one thing she looks forward to every year is having that 15 sessions to get the budget. But seriously, it's knocking on the door, and we will be here before you know it, presenting budgets and amendments and those kind of things. Matter of fact, next meeting, there will probably be a few budget amendments, things that have just occurred during the year that we knew were coming along, but until we got the revenues and those kind of things for them, we didn't want to include them in our budget. So now that we've gotten some of those monies in, we need to go ahead and get the budget amendments passed, get us moving forward and carrying on from that standpoint. If you have your financials in front of you, I'll quickly run through just a couple of things that we need to look at. Overall, we had a decrease in cash of about $26,000 for the month. Nothing that shocks us as far as what we're expecting. By the time we made the transfers out and got everything covered as far as debt service and those pieces, it's more just an operational time piece. I'm not worried that cash was down for the month. It is some of our cooler months, and while yes, it's still dry, people are not out watering like they normally would. So we usually see this time of year. It'll last December, January, February, sometimes even into late March before we'll start seeing the turnaround. As far as that goes, don't worry, included in our budget and where we expect it to be. Looking at the general fund itself, again, 50% through the year. So as we look at those numbers, you should see 50%. The sales tax by itself is always a nice number to start out with whenever we're 13% above budget. I like that number coming in and continuing to collect very well. One of the other numbers that I'll go ahead and point you towards is our ED money. We're setting it at 94% right now, which includes hotel motel tax and the sale of the land pieces that we've already done out in the industrial park. So both of those numbers are included in there. We did have another $20,000+ sales tax a month. Plus, we did receive some of the back. There was one sales tax piece that was behind. You don't see it in this number, you actually see it in January's number, but we now have everybody caught up through December's payments on hotel motel tax, which is a good thing that I'm happy to at least report. So that continues to go well. With the election coming on, there's probably a piece that citizens are going to want to know is, were they being paid, or is it being paid? And we can say it is. We're going out to do one for sure field audit just to verify those numbers. We're looking at maybe even doing a couple of more over the next 2 or 3 months for a couple that we just want to make sure are reporting all of their numbers to us. As far as expenses go, as you can see within the city piece, everybody's really running at their 50% or below. We don't really expect any of these to be out of line really in the next half of the year as we look down what we have coming on and the things that we have to do. So I'm very happy with where we're sitting right now. In the general fund, related to the utility piece, as you can see, we're over in some of our expenses related to electric and water. Both of those related to seasonality and related to some of our increased costs there. Those actually adjust themselves as we get into the fall. So I'm not too worried about that part. And the rest of it is running out of 50%. So far, I'll tell you we are ahead of budgeted revenues as of this point, and likewise we're under on our budgeted expenses as of this point. So I would tell you we're sitting in good shape. It's the same report that almost I get to give every time, because we have good department heads, we have good people that are watching their areas. We're doing the things that we have to do, and we're holding off on some of the bigger projects that until we see where we are or we see what needs to be done, we will address those as it goes along. But nobody's being frivolous at this point.
Questions of CFO? Questions or comments on the Perry numbers? Very well, thank you, Russ, appreciate it. Now we'll move to item number 8, which is to receive a presentation from the Main Street of Perry concerning the virtual Perry tour. We have with us this evening the Director of the Perry Main Street Program, Stacy Boley. Stacy?
I got up here pretty quick. I wasn't very far away. Thank you, Council, for letting me come and speak tonight. And for those of you in attendance tonight and at home, I am Stacy Boley, as he said, the Director of Main Street. And Main Street exists for our downtown. What we do is we take a multifaceted approach. So it's not just making our downtown beautiful or approaching it from a historic preservation point of view. We actually try and create a viable downtown. So that means getting creative, coming up with different ways to have this multifaceted approach. So I am here tonight to go ahead and introduce to you one of the most exciting projects that I have ever worked on in the 5 years I've been here. It is a really neat project. It has involved all of our volunteers. It was based out of the Economic Restructuring Committee. Basically what they do is they come up with different ways to be creative for the downtown, launch us into the new technology and different ways of doing that, approach things like economic development, historical preservation, to not only enhance the aesthetic value, but also something like this project, which I will go ahead and introduce to you. So this website, we have our new website, and it's taken a lot of man hours, a lot of volunteer hours. We actually had our ER committee, along with the entire base of our volunteers, go around downtown Perry and survey all of the buildings, resurvey, because we had done this years ago. But they went and they took information down all the way down to square footage, the owner of the building, what's inhabited there now. So after we got all of this information back, we took it to Cheryl Dieger, which has been very wonderful in working with us. She actually herself, along with Clyde Spear, we all know Clyde, our historical researcher, put in hundreds of hours in historical research for these buildings in our downtown. So we're very lucky to have them on our volunteer base. So they took this information, and she began building our website about a year ago. And this virtual walk was something that we were most proud of. So we'll go ahead and look at the page just very quickly. I want to tell you a few notes about hers while I show you. Cheryl wanted to mention, definitely when we get it all completed, you'll see how it comes up, and I hope you can see it on the screen. But basically it pops up a current picture. So these are updated pictures. This is not old information. This will give anybody anywhere in the world a testament to what our mayor was saying earlier, that Perry is very charming, and this is a way to bring people in, not only with visual imagery, but with what our businesses are, the charming feel of it. And so these are all updated. It has the updated information, the address, what business is in there, like I said. And then a really neat thing about it, as Cheryl pointed out also, is the National Register of Historic Places, which was a Main Street project years and years ago before I was there. But our entire downtown, now there's non-contributing and contributing locations or buildings in our downtown, but the entire district is on the National Register. And what this does is shows you which ones are designated on that National Register. So this could also be used for students in schools that are doing projects as far as historical preservation or just Oklahoma history, and using the plaque information that will be up here. And I'll go ahead, if we can go back to the screen, show you a little more of the historical preservation. This is a really neat addition. This will be on every single building when we are complete. This will be phase 3. And this brings up not only what's in there now, but what we have used on the Perry Plaque Project. And for those of you very quickly who don't know, our award-winning, recognized in Oklahoma, Perry Plaque Project, there are these granite plaques that are mounted on our downtown buildings. You can walk around and read them anytime, day or night, with a flashlight at night, of course. But it'll give you the history of the buildings, what was in there, and just some neat personable facts that also, like I said, viable downtown, get people interested if you're not normally interested in historical preservation. Like the fact that the globe, which I'll go back to Red Earth here, this is essentially, if not the oldest, one of the oldest buildings on our square. And they used to, the story is, and it's, you know, in the plaque information, they used to flood the basement of this building to keep their catfish in there for the cafe that was in there originally. So it's this human interest stuff that gets people interested. And it also goes into play with what I said with the students. We brought students downtown, a high school class. Tim Height was very, our design committee helped work with Tim Height. He brought his students down. That's what they were interested in. They wanted to go stand on the courthouse lawn and, you know, hear all the stories and the ghost stories and things like that. So this will give them a way to take technology into the classroom anywhere in Oklahoma and say, look what downtown Perry is doing. So this is a great way for not only informational and learning purposes, educational purposes, but also, if you'll notice on the screen, you can go around the square, walk around the square, and you can also see which buildings are vacant. So these could be buildings for rent, and this will eventually have how much they go for rent. so we can entice businesses to come down in our historic district, again, keeping it viable and healthy. I don't think I left anything out. That's basically, we will keep it updated. We're still working on it, but it is at this point at least completed enough where we have launched it, and that's why I'm here tonight. I really want to emphasize the work with the city of Perry, the support we receive from different events that we do. This is something that we all create together, and this is something that will benefit the entire community, not just the downtown. So this is a very important aspect of what Main Street does and the city of Perry, and we have different things that come along, and this can play into the preservation conference that Perry has been selected to host this year. It is actually this year in June. This will actually be one of the sessions, and we will be speaking about this to everybody who attends that session. So this is definitely a big deal. As Cheryl mentioned, she believes that this is one of the only websites that she has ever seen that lists the National Historic Register information on it. So this is unique in and of itself, and for that reason we are actually submitting this to be recognized on a state level for Oklahoma Main Street. So again, thank you, and we will continue to work on it, and I appreciate all my volunteers, the city of Perry, and everybody who definitely makes our downtown part of our history, part of our heart of our community. So I appreciate your time. Does anybody have any questions?
What's the website so that they can go to it?
Oh yes, because you can't really see it. It flashed it. I'm so sorry. It is perrymainstreet.com. And our entire website, and I don't mean to downplay that, our entire website is amazing. It has interactive, downloadable volunteer forms because we are a volunteer-driven organization. It has a lot of different aspects on there, our mission, our vision, resources for our business. So if you want to know anything about Main Street of Perry, go visit that website or give me a call, and I appreciate your time.
Are we linking with the City of Perry's web?
Yes. And since you mentioned links, there's so much information I didn't know what to include or what not to include. But speaking of links, not only the City of Perry's website, but eventually we will have a way to link the business website at no cost. So this is helping the businesses, which is what we're here for.
Any other questions or comments of Stacy? Well, Stacy, congratulations. I know that took a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I think it's a good quality product.
Thank you.
Appreciate you showing it to us this evening.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll move to item number 9, which is items pertaining to the closing of a portion of Birch Street. You have 3 items under agenda number 9. 1 is to receive the recommendation of the Perry Planning Commission. 2 is to conduct a public hearing on the closing, and 3 is for you to consider an ordinance, which in fact would close the street. So we'll take them one at a time. We'll move to item number 9A, which is to receive a recommendation of the Perry Planning Commission. Council members, you're aware that the Perry Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on December 27th, 2012, and they recommend the approval of the closing of that portion of Birch. Marvin, were you going to comment on behalf of the Planning Commission?
I wasn't prepared to, but I can say that we thoroughly vetted this subject at a recent hearing and then voted unanimously to recommend it be closed.
So we'll receive the recommendation of the Perry Planning Commission. We'll consider that received, which is their recommendation to unanimously recommended to approve the closing. Now we'll move to item number B, which is to conduct a public hearing. At this time, I will open the public hearing as it relates to the closing for public use, the portion of Birch Street situated between blocks 31 and 38 in the original town site of Perry, situated in the city of Perry, county of Noble, state of Oklahoma. We are in the public hearing now. At this time, if there are any citizens that want to make comment related to this closing, they're welcome to do so.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm pursuing this matter on behalf of my client, Hake Holding. Hake Holding owns the property there where the Easy Drill plant is, and if you saw your maps, I think you have maps included, you'll see that what was originally platted at the time they platted North and West Perry, they platted Birch Street there. Birch Street was never opened, never has been opened, never has been a street. Over the years, the Easy Drill plant has kind of encompassed that. The back part of that street has been previously vacated. And so this is just asking the council to approve the ordinance which vacates the street so that eventually I anticipate going to district court and foreclosing the right to ever reopen the street so that there's I believe a survey was recently done as a result of some loan applications, and there was a couple of buildings that may have encroached or got close to the street. That's kind of what's prompted this. So anyway, we would just ask that the council approve the ordinance.
Questions of Mr. Leach? Questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Leach. Additional time needed for the public hearing. Any additional comment by anybody present? Additional comments? Seeing none then, I will conclude the public hearing on the closing to the public use of portion of Birch Street situated between blocks 31 and 38 in Perry. And move to item number C and ask the council to consider ordinance 2013-05 closing to the public the use of the portion of Birch Street situated between blocks 31 and 38.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Shelby and second by Bill to approve the ordinance closing the portion of Birch Street. That's ordinance number 2013-05. Will there be discussion? Further discussion by the Perry City Council. Seeing none, a yes vote approves the ordinance. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Motion on the emergency?
Second.
We have a motion and second on the emergency. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. All right, we'll move to item number 10, which is consider approval of resolution 2013-03, approving the interlocal cooperative agreement for Circuit Engineering District, otherwise known as CED 8. Council members, you all are very aware, if you've been around this table much at all, you know that annually we approve this relationship with Circuit Engineering, which allows us to buy city signs, street signs, etc., at a 50% discount. It comes with needing your approval on the resolution 2013-03.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Will there be discussion? Seeing none, you're voting on the resolution to approve the interlocal cooperative agreement for Circuit Engineering District. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Aye.
Duke,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes. All right, now we move to item number 11, which is to conduct a public hearing on the Suddenlink Communication proposal for an extension of the cable license, including receiving comments from the public and making determinations. Before I open up the public hearing, let me just give you a little brief background information to the extent possible. As you know, for a number of years, we've had a relationship with Suddenlink Communications for them to lease poles from us to provide cable services to the city. This is a requirement that we conduct this public hearing and receive input from our citizens. But it's far more than that. There's actually 4 items that we hope to address as it relates to the public hearing. And that's item number 1, where the cable operator has provided a satisfactory service during the past licensing term. Item number 2 is where the cable operator has complied with the terms of the existing license and laws. And I think we have a presentation from our staff as it relates to that. Number 3 is where the cable operator has the financial, legal, and technical qualifications to operate. And item number 4 is what are the future cable-related needs and interests of the residents of the city of Perry. So that's what we hope to conduct in tonight's session. You're not asked in any way to approve a continuing relationship with Suddenlink. This is just the public hearing portion of that. You'll be asked to look at agreements in the months to come. So with that, are there any questions as it relates to the public hearing before we convene it? Seeing none, we'll move to officially to item number 11, which is to convene and conduct a public hearing on Suddenlink Communication and the proposal for the extension of cable licensing, including receiving comments from the public. So we are now in a public hearing mode to hear the Suddenlink Communications proposal. At this time, I think we have Byron Mahaffey is here on behalf of Suddenlink. And Byron, you're certainly free to talk, make an opening remarks if you'd like. We will provide as much time for the public to speak as they would like, and we will certainly be open to all that. So, Byron, do you want to lead it off?
I think Bryce was going to lead it off, and then I was going to follow.
That would be fun. Okay. So, so you want to make the presentation on behalf of the cable operator being in compliance with terms, correct?
Yes, I want to do actually 2 and 3.
Okay.
First of all, we've attached to your agenda, if you want to turn just to tab 11, the documents. The first 2 pages is the letter that was sent by Suddenlink. That is required under the Cable Communications Act. Within 36 months of the end of the term, they're supposed to give a copy of this letter, and then we have certain duties to do. That's one of the reasons why we're having this hearing today. The next document is our cable ordinance, which was actually passed in 1993. We extended it to, it ended in 2008. And then we extended it in 2008 for an additional 7 years. And that document is Resolution 2008-14, which is a few more documents in. I'm sorry I don't have them really in order, but if you see that, that document extended it for that 7-year period. And it's got an exhibit on the back of it which kind of amended the ordinance and added some additional things that Suddenlink agreed to do. If you want to then back up, there's also a franchise agreement and a poll agreement. And then finally, I did a little legal memo, which I'm not going to go over, but which tells you, under federal law, what things we can regulate, what things they have the power over, or what things we can talk about together. And it really talks about, how this negotiation proceeds, and you can put that in an appropriate place and read that if you want to, but that's kind of what we're doing. So those are the documents that were attached to the agenda. As a part of this hearing, the one thing that we're supposed to do is we're supposed to go through that ordinance and through that exhibit and make sure that they have lived up to the term of their existing license and the laws. It's kind of, doing a checklist to make sure that. Now, we have had some comments. We put this in the newspaper and we invited the public to make comments. We received a few comments. We received 4 that said poor service. We have 3 that said high prices, and 2 that said no phone answered on weekends. Was that the total number, or did some people complain about different things?
Well, some of those have more than one on the complaint.
Okay, so do you know how many complaints we got?
I believe it was
4. Okay.
Let me just in case we have some citizens in the audience that are wondering, you're going to have time to speak to, if you want to come to the podium and talk about under the open session of the cable franchise agreement or your feelings related to that, you're going to have time to do that. So we're not just making it exclusive to what came into City Hall. You'll have time tonight if you have that desire. Okay, Bryce?
So, just running through these, do they have their system pretty much through the entire city of Perry, except where there's a line extension policy? You have to have a certain number of subscribers per quarter mile. And then there's kind of a buy-in. Subscribers pay a part of the extension and the cable company pays the other part. We have had no complaints about that. And, we feel that they're throughout most of the city. If anybody does want it extended and they have some other subscribers, there is a cost basis that they can get it extended to them You know, you can't really take cable a quarter of a mile to pick up one person. It would never be a payback, just like we wouldn't extend our water or sewer utility for a quarter mile for one person. And the ordinance regulates that. Do they maintain a place of business in town? Yes. Have they been coordinating the installations with the electric and street departments? We spoke to Sam and Brian, and they said it's much better than it was and no problem now. Do they have the proper insurance, both workers' comp and tort claims? Yes. And those are filed. Have they reached the channel capacity that was promised? Yes. What about their signal quality? There have been these complaints of poor service and high prices. A PIN was recently offline, twice last month. They're supposed to put cable drops in schools, police stations, library, fire, council chambers, city hall, and that's where we can get cable services for free. Have they done that? Yes. Have they provided the PEG channels that they're required to provide? And it's 2 channels now, and the answer is yes.
Not PEG, PIN, but you all knew what he meant.
Yeah, well, PEG is...
I understand,
yeah,
but we call it
Yeah,
PIN
you call it
here.
PIN here. PEG means public education governmental, but PIN stations, yes, Perry Information Network. That's the actual name. Did they provide a character generator? Yes. Do they pay the full cost of maintaining and repairing equipment? Yes, all the equipment necessary to get the PIN signal to them. We have discussed an issue on Cow Creek that we're gonna deal with, having to do with the line. Our pole agreement, we talked about this last time, we're at $3, and, you know, most cities have raised that, you know, substantially above $3, so that's certainly something that we should talk about. And we talked about the plat of lines. You may have given us a plat, you know, 4 years ago. We have a new electric superintendent, and actually knowing where your lines are and working that into our CAD operation is something that would be good. They pay us 5% of their gross revenue. Last year, actually January 30th, 2012, they paid us $43,177. And so that money goes to run PIN and keep that operation going.
Is that an annual fee?
Yes, and yes, it's based on 5% of the gross on their cable TV. To help us, they connected our repeater tower to their Suddenlink generator. They did that as a part of last year's deal. They agreed to do that. They donated fiber to the municipal building, and they provided their second channel. That pretty much goes over the items that are up to date. As a part of this negotiation, you know, originally when we did it, we weren't going to get digital channels. We do have digital channels now, and they were able to provide that upgrade, and HD channels too, right? Which we didn't think, but you guys did put that together. If you look at the memo, there's things that we can ask for, there's things that you can't ask for, you know. If I hear something that we can't ask for, I might not say anything, but I might say something like, you know, under federal law, you know, that's something that we can suggest and talk to them about, but we can't demand. The whole purpose of this is really to get input from the public and to answer these questions that are here at the hearing, and then to just continue a negotiation. The third one is whether the cable operator has the financial, legal, technical qualifications to operate the cable system. And I am familiar with Suddenlink. They have a big operation. In Oklahoma, they actually bought up some of the systems that Cox didn't have. Cox kept their big systems, but they bought the other ones. You're in Stillwater.
Stillwater,
and
Muskogee,
Enid, and
a lot
some
of
of the other big markets. We of course would love to get our system up, you know, up comparable to those bigger ones. But it's all about, you know, the money that they pull off this and how much they can reinvest into the system, given the other available ways to get cable TV. See, that didn't used to be the issue. Well, when I started doing this in '81, cable was the game. You know, that was pretty, it was either that or you put your antenna up and, you know, put some tinfoil on it and hope to get something from Oklahoma City. Since that time, Dish, DirecTV, AT&T, Pioneer, you know, lots of different competition. And you need to remember one thing, and I'm not just doing a pitch for you, I'm telling them because I wouldn't do that. You know, I represent these guys. But the one thing that I could say is cable pays us. These other groups, they don't pay us. You know, Dish runs on our streets, DirecTV runs on our streets, all that. They use our rights, they don't use our rights of way, but they use our roads, which is part of our rights of way, and we don't get anything for those operations. So it's good to have cable TV. It's good to see you make improvements in the system. Once again, I think that we've shown by this that at least under the factors that I mentioned, that you complied with existing license and laws, and that you do have the financial, legal, technical qualifications to operate the cable system. I mean, you are a big company. I've spoken to your attorney a number of times. You have a big financial operation, and I would think that you would have the qualifications to operate this. Now, Mr. Mayor, I do think it is time for the presentation and then to hear more comments from the public and from the council.
Thank you. Byron, you want to approach the podium and speak?
I'm Byron Mahaffey, I'm the general manager for this area. So, just want to kind of touch base on what we've recently done in Perry, what we're planning to do in Perry, and then we'll open it up. So, 13 months ago, we completed a project here in Perry called Project Imagine. It was a $350 million capital investment over our normal investments, not all in Perry, but Perry was included in that. Suddenlink added more high definition HD TV channels. They included broadcast stations, KOCB HD, KOPX HD ION, and KETA HD PBS, as well as ESPN HD, USA HD, Food Network HD, History Channel HD, TNT HD, A&E HD, The Learning Channel HD, Sci-Fi HD, HGTV HD, TBS HD, and Discovery Channel HD. HD offers a widescreen format similar to a movie theater with distinctly sharper and clearer images than standard TV. It also provides a superior sound quality. Not all networks or stations offer HD programming. It was a total of 18 new channels and 14 of them were HD. So that's what we just kind of wrapped up in Perry. We are planning in the next 3 years to tie our systems together with fiber for redundancy. When we do that, you know, if you get cut on this side, you can feed it from the other side, but it also allows us to bring programming from one head end, or the site where the tower and the dishes are, from one town to another. So where you might be limited with bandwidth in one town, you now can, you know, have the signal and the channels to provide from another town. So that's a 3-year project. I think Perry is slated for year 2 in that. So, I mean, I think that's good news for Perry. Probably at least be able to offer 30 or 40 more HD channels when that's done. So, with that, I'll open it up.
Questions? Does anybody have any questions for Byron? Any questions by anybody? I'm sure that we may call you back up.
Oh, sure.
Let's open it up to the public. Thank you. Yes, sir. If you just come to the podium, anybody that wants to speak, if you just come to the podium, maybe give us your name and your address where you live, and then make your comments.
I appreciate you hearing me out tonight. My name's Irvin Beer. I live at 820 Cedar. I didn't know we were supposed to submit any complaints to the city about the cable. I've always called the cable company itself for the past year. We keep losing connection on our internet. Well, about 3 months ago, I finally disconnected internet from Suddenlink because every night I'd lose connection. Well, they told me that there was this problem, that problem. Then they finally said, well, you don't have good wiring, you don't have good grounding. So I spent $150 to get a licensed city electrician in, put an 8-foot ground rod in the ground. Next day I lost connection again. Well, we're supposed to be getting, I guess, 8 kilovolts or whatever we've talked about there, I'm not sure. But we're not really getting the service from Suddenlink that, you know, I mean, we got a Suddenlink truck in our alley about once a week working on somebody's house. And it's not just my place, it's on that circuit line. I really, you know, don't know all that much about internet and all this stuff, but Keith Nody came tonight because he could explain to you. Now, he's been running a check on the lines for the past couple of weeks, and we're getting as low as a 3 gig on it instead of the 8 that we're being promised. So I'd like to sit down there and let Keith Nody come up and explain it to you, because he's more into computers than I am.
That'd be great. Thank you very much for your comments. Keith, if you just state your full name and where you live, that'd be great.
My name's Keith Nolte. I live 932 South Boundary. I've been a member of, Perry organization for all my life. I've dealt with Suddenlink pretty much all my life, other than when Cox was available. And when Suddenlink took over and bought it out, we've been Suddenlink users ever since. Here recently, about probably 2 years ago, I pulled in and got the Suddenlink package for internet, 8 megabytes. I wanted it because of the Netflix use, the internet, just basically the data use. We're coming into the 21st century. That's what it is. It's internet. I was able to stream television, stream Netflix, watch everything over the internet that I needed to do. Well, then I noticed that everything was going digital with the over-the-air digital channels. So I set up an antenna, and I was able to pull in local channels from Oklahoma and pull in 32 channels over the airwaves for free. So I started bundling that with my internet. Until probably about a year ago, Suddenlink put in a limit of 150 gigabytes a month. And then they started sending out notices that the citizens of Perry had to stay under this limit or receive an additional charge of, I think it was $10 every month, or every 10 gigabytes, which I see no problem with, until I got one of my customer care customers calling me up saying, you do realize that you are within your 3 months. We're giving you this courtesy call. You are at, right now, 200 gigabytes for this month. And I started adding that up. And I was like, okay, that's just a little bit too much. They bundled my package with a television service. Well, I was streaming Netflix. I have 2 little girls that watch nothing but Netflix. So they bundled it with a television, which I was able to get all my local channels, and the girls started watching OETA and the Disney Channel and this and that for right around about $60. When I bundled my services with the television, I noticed that my internet actually depleted, and I was not getting the service that I was actually promised at the 8 megabyte service. So I started running systematic checks, the speed test. And when my service went down, I was calling in regularly, and I talked to Stan, one of your engineers, and I have one of his cards personally, and I was working with him to take and better the services here in Perry. Well, fortunately for my area, we are set up on a loop that wasn't pre-existing at the time. When I first got service back 2 years ago, I wasn't able to get it. They wired me up for internet, and I went to go connect, no services. They found out that my block of area had not even been connected. So I went almost 2 weeks without service until they got me connected. So I had all new stuff put through mine. Well, since I've bundled my television, I've noticed that my internet usage was going from 3 megabytes up to 4 megabytes. And then on slow days, I'd get down to 1 or 2. Now here recently, it's jumped back up, and I'm now getting anywhere from 8 megabytes to 9 megabytes, which is above what I should be getting, but I'm not going to complain. You never complain when you're getting more. My upgrade speed has ranged from around about 512, 0.512 megabytes which is about a half a meg, which is perfectly fine for me. I don't need much upload speed. I would, however, like to see it a little bit better than what it is now, due to the fact that I can walk across the street to my parents' house, hop on their DSL, and it's 3 megabytes up, 3 megabytes down. So, in my honest opinion, Suddenlink to me has actually provided me the service needed, but when I talk to other people in my area, I actually requested or actually referred Irvin Beer to the Suddenlink because he was having problems with DSL, always hiking up the prices. I said, well, give Suddenlink a try. It's 8 megabytes, it's better than what you're getting now, and it's actually can be bundled in with your internet service. I honestly apologized to him when he actually turned back to DSL. I also started listening to some of my other friends that have actually gotten him. And they're saying that their service up north of town, in the Locust area, is not to par. So what do we need to do? This is what we're needing to put out to Suddenlink and to the city of Perry. What do we need to do? Is it infrastructure? Is it, how do we need to prepare for the upcoming usage for the Main Street organization, for the Perry businesses that need this informational highway to better their services, to get their information out? For Ditch Witch, our industries, for our hotels, for the customers and the people that come into Perry, for their usage, the business people that come in, the dealers for Ditch Witch. When they come in, are they going to get the quality of service that Perry needs to be providing on an internet basis? Or are they going to get substandard?
Thank you for your comments this evening. I want to give, yes, sir? Would you like to speak?
Yes. My name is Gene Smith. I live at 1710 North 11th Street. That is the very end of Suddenlink's line. Stops in my house. I don't get too good at television. Every time they come out, they want to put a booster on it. They finally came out and buried the cable from the pole, which the cable ran to, over to my house and then up the side of the house. Didn't do any good. Still get cutouts in it, blackouts in it. Not large ones, but they'll just go out and blick out enough on you to where it's annoying. Another thing, I am not complaining about the picture, the clearness that you get from the picture on them. I'm satisfied with what I'm getting there. And I've got more than one TV, so I know that there has to be certain things done. But why don't we have a television guide to tell us what's on the different channels? As far as I know, we got one movie channel, AMC. They cut out TNT and everything else that we've had that we could get any movies on. We can sure get a lot of 30-minute family shows and 1-hour family shows. Don't want to watch them all day and all night long. We use our TVs. In any room that we're in, we use our televisions. That's what we got them for. But we sure would like to know what's on it. If you do find something or hear something over the television that sounds like it's going to be a good movie, hey, I'm going to watch that. You turn to it, get about 10-15 minutes into it, it ain't no good. Well, again, you try to find another movie on it that's half over with and what you blowed your whole thing. That's not good. We need a television guide that will tell us what stations we've got and a little something out there. Is it a Western, a romance? What is it? And I'm very unhappy about not having a TV guide, and because I'm retired and I watch television all the time. Another thing, they must be forgetting. There is an awful lot of retired people in this town that's living on Social Security. They just went up $5. I don't know what channels they knocked off, but they probably did. And these people are not going to be able to afford it. They're up to $63 a month now. That's enough. For what we're getting, the programs we are getting, we're being skinned.
That's my personal opinion, and I'm not dissatisfied with the pictures that we're getting from them. The people in Perry that work on them are good, they know what they're doing, but I have been told a couple of times that I need my house rewired. It's had so many boosters and connections and everything made in it, it's no good anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Any other,
I'd like to make a
please,
comment.
yeah, feel free.
I'm surprised that there's not more people here tonight. I've heard so many negative comments, but I could see why they're not here, because after hearing our city attorney speak so positive that the cable vision has the benefits for Perry, I can see why a lot of people probably feel like, well, they was just wasting their breath to come and voice their opinion, because it kind of sounds like it might be a done deal because it's good for revenue for Perry, but it's really not so much for the people. I know a lot of people that have the high definition. They have to pay a lot of extra for it. I don't have it. And I've been without just local 4, 5, and 9. But the people that are paying this extra to have this high definition, they can have those 4, 5, and 9. And again, just like the last gentleman said, a lot of people are on fixed incomes, and I feel like that we've had a lot of increases just in the last year or two. We've had 2 or 3, it seems to me like, and I may be off on my time, and we get these increases, but I feel like our service has been down. Here lately, the last month or 2, we've been without TV a lot. It just says no signal. And then it comes on and says they're negotiating on a contract or something like that. Well, that don't mean too much to us. So, but anyhow, I'd just like to voice my opinion, and I think I've heard a lot of people that are dissatisfied that haven't came tonight or sent in notes, and I think they just think, well, it's whatever City Hall says, that's what it's going to be, so to speak. So, but thank you for listening to me.
Wanda, would you be kind enough to state your full name and your
Oh,
address
I'm
for
sorry.
our record, please?
Yeah, I'm Wanda Harper, and I live at 914 Rose Terrace.
Thank you so
Sorry,
much.
Chad.
Appreciate your comments.
Uh-huh.
Anybody else that is here? Ma'am, could I get you to state your name and
And I live at 108 Skyline Hills Avenue. We've been on cable, hadn't always been suddenly, but from the very beginning. We live out in the country, but because we're close to the tower, they have given us the right to be on it. We've stayed on the cable for several reasons, one of which has to do with weather. I can always get the weather usually, normally on cable when you can't on Dish or some of the other things, and I feel that it is an important thing for us to have. I'd like to see more people in Perry support Suddenlink and be on it, because then we do get better service. We would have more money for them to increase and do better. I too have experienced outages just as Wanda has. It's frustrating. It's interesting how they happen right at a strategic moment when you're wanting to watch the Rose Parade or the, OU Texas game. That was really interesting that morning when the TV went off. My husband, I thought, was going to have a coronary. So I will say that when we called the lady to complain, she was very courteous and very nice, and she expressed her concern, even though she wasn't a football fan and didn't know anything about OU Texas. She would try to do the best she could to get it on, and it happened. So I can say that their help is courteous and polite. Every time that I've ever had them come out, they are courteous and polite and try to do as good as they can. I will say that it is frustrating to be as everybody else when you're sitting there watching a program and it goes off in the middle of it, or like I said, at important times. We would like to also see if there is a way to get more sports on our cable. I don't know if that's possible or not, but I know that that is a complaint that my husband has. And so those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I think we have a need for more movies. We don't have any movies on there hardly. It's all family stuff, short stuff. You can get the News Press out of Stillwater. Go through it. You can see just about what we're getting on there. And it doesn't list everything, and it doesn't list them right. We need a TV guide.
Thank you, Gene. Other comments from those assembled in our audience today?
Come on, guys, speak up.
Now's your opportunity. Okay. Let's, Byron, I know, do you want to speak to some of these comments? And again, let me remind, Byron, before you come on up if you want to, I want to make a distinction because it may sound better coming from me than you in making this distinction. And I think that, and I'm going to have to defer to, and Wanda just love to hear from the city attorney. I want to make sure that I have this right before I say it's a matter of fact. We've had certainly some very pointed discussion as it relates to the TV and the cable tonight, and no doubt, and I think we're going to be talking about that as we go on in this public hearing. Well, we've had a couple of you that have spoken about your concerns as it relates to the internet. And I believe, and Bryce, I have to defer to you, but we have to make a separation between the cable service and the cable provider for which we're having the public session on tonight, and the internet service that they provide that is secondary to the cable service. And the question I wanted to ask you, Bryce, is I don't believe that we're getting any franchise fees.
We can't regulate it.
For the
We
internet.
receive no fees for it, so.
So we really don't have control now. Somebody over the internet function of who provides that. Now, I think somebody said, well, we are concerned about the businesses and the growth, and that sort of thing. Suddenlink doesn't promote themselves as the internet provider. They certainly have an internet function that they can provide you through the cable internet, but that's not their fundamental business. And as Bryce confirmed, and I thought was the case, we don't have any regulatory power over a subsidiary service that they provide, which in this case we're talking about the internet. Where do the businesses go? They're going to the T1 lines and the T3s through AT&T. They're specializing, in that internet function. That's not to belittle your concerns over not getting a quality product, from the internet. But I just wanted to make that point that we have to make a separation over that particular service. Do you understand where I'm coming from on that? Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I just wanted to make that point. We can certainly, if we go forward with negotiations, we can certainly encourage Suddenlink to be better in how they provide their cable service, but it's unregulated. In fact, I was actually I just actually begged for Suddenlink to make a internet option to our citizens. It wasn't required for them to do. I called Byron many times and I said, is there any way, and coincidentally, as they were putting in their infrastructure for Enid and Stillwater, correct me if I'm wrong, we were able to be a beneficiary of those Stillwater and Enid upgrades because the loop was coming through here anyway, and I'm making this very elementary. But because the loop was coming through here anyway, we were able to attach onto it and get the cable internet service as an option to DSL or wireless or AT&T or wherever you were getting your service prior to this being an option. So I just wanted to make that distinction. I have no doubt that you have parts of your internet service, maybe all of it, that you're dissatisfied with. We can't regulate that through our cable contract with Suddenlink as it relates to the hearing that we're having tonight. Okay, fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay. Byron?
Okay. Well, while we're talking about the internet, I'll just address some issues or some concerns there. The internet is a best effort. It is not guaranteed. So the more cable customers or the more people on the internet that get on, can slow those speeds. And the more devices each person has at his house can slow that speed. So we can have perfect service to the house, and they hook up, 5 different items in the house, iPhones, iPads, computers, streaming Netflix. It's gonna slow it down. We are planning on changing the packages to a 3 meg and a 15 meg here in the near future. I don't know the exact date on that, but that is coming. As far as problems that some people are having with the internet, we did have an issue with a provider that ties Perry to Stillwater. And of course, it's intermittent, which makes it the worst kind, to try to find. I personally came to Perry and ran with some guys on some service calls, and it would be fine. And these would be escalated customers. The next day, they'd be calling back again, so right after you left, we started having problems again. We did identify that, so, we shouldn't have that problem. I mean, you still could have slower speeds at peak times, but, that's the nature of the beast. Was there any other concerns on the internet?
Well, I don't think so on the internet. Obviously, you've heard several concerns related to the cable, so I'll turn you loose with that.
Okay. As far as, I know pricing came up, while we pledge to hold prices as low as possible, these adjustments are necessary due to the rising cost of TV programming, equipment, insurance, network expenses for internet service and other factors. Our direct costs are increasing more than 5%, while the cost of basic cable networks is increasing 7.5%. A figure that jumps to 9.4 when you include the cost of retransmitting broadcast TV stations. Suddenlink is absorbing a portion of these cost increases and passing along a portion to customers. In addition, we have bundled packages of 2 or more services that can help many customers offset these adjustments and potentially save money. More than 6 out of 10 Suddenlink customers have already taken advantage of these offers, bundling services with us, and we will continue to communicate those options to our customers. So, bottom line is, as our cost of business goes up, we have to pass some of that along to the customer. So, TV Guide, we did not renew our contract with TV Guide. So, if you have a digital box, we have a guide on there. But as far as the basic service, we no longer have a contract with them, Suddenlink, anywhere. So,
Byron, are there additional movie options for the basic lineup? And let me, Gene, Byron is more of an authority on his services, obviously, than I am. But you do understand that there's different tier levels that you can buy into for.
I understand that.
Okay, so we have to, I've got to assume that you're wanting the basic package with the TV Guide and with additional movie channels on the basic lineup. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Then this box that he's talking about, how much more is that gonna cost us?
Okay, thank you.
I'll refer that to my office manager.
He'll pass the buck now.
Go right ahead, let's get them answered as they
It depends
come
on the
up.
level of service that you take. Right now, we are offering a free digital box on your first television. So if that's something that you wanted to do, there would be no cost for the box itself. There would be a cost if you chose to add additional programming to that service.
And if you got 3 or 4 televisions, you'll have a box for every one of them?
Yes, sir.
And then you gotta pay for it,
Yes, sir.
No, that's not, no.
Well, I might not be able to make
No
it
way.
happen, but that's the way it is.
Well, hey, whenever you get enough people on that, or on Social Security, that they can't pay your prices, what are you gonna do then? Well, service is gonna disappear.
Price is going up.
Service is gonna
We put public
disappear.
notices in the paper.
And if you don't get the paper,
You see it on your bill and call us.
What
oh, yeah,
paper?
we've tried that.
I've explained the pricing issue and what constitutes that and what drives that. I don't know what else I can tell you as far as pricing goes.
Did you want, was there any other questions that you had that you wanted to address?
No, not this time, unless somebody else has got some more.
Okay.
Are you basically a Oklahoma company?
No, we're based out of St. Louis. So the ones I know of are Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma.
How many customers,
Ohio, Arizona,
Ohio,
California,
Arizona.
North Carolina.
how many customers do you have in Perry?
900 and some change.
Does that compare to, say, 5 years ago? Has there been migration one way or another?
There's been some migration off of the video product, but we've been able to keep up with the other products that compensate.
Additional questions by the council or the public? We're still in the public session. Still in public session. Any additional comments? Okay, Byron, thank you for your time, and thank you to everybody that took time to make public comment. You know, we have around this table a lot of public meetings on. You saw two tonight, and one was on the closing of the alley. And rarely do we have the public come in and speak to it, and so it's refreshing to have you come in. I did want to, just because I think it's important, to throw it out there, because Wanda made a comment that, Wanda, I'm talking about you.
I'm negotiating.
Yeah, okay, good. You made a comment that I think bears further discussion, and that was your feeling of it. You know, I don't know why we do this. It kind of seems like that, you know, that it's a done deal kind of thing, and I want to address that.
No, I didn't mean it quite that way, Chuck. I just said, I didn't know the city benefited.
But you agree with it?
That's right.
Okay. What's your name, ma'am?
My name is Vera Ives.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I didn't know the city benefited from it until Bryce was saying what he did, and then I seen why it was a positive thing for the council, because it's revenue for the city. But I think that's a lot of people knew that, so they say, you know, it's just a done deal because we get the revenue off of it.
Yeah, and I want to, and I just wanted to carry that a little further. You know, we don't talk about these contracts very often. I mean, this last deal was a 7-year agreement, so it doesn't come back, you know, very often. But I can certainly see, you know, why people, you know, might think that hey, it's just, you know, it is what it is. The thing that I want our citizens, you know, to understand is we don't have cable companies beating down our door wanting to invest millions of dollars in infrastructure in Perry for 900 accounts. Okay? I mean, we just don't. I wish we did. But the infrastructure associated with providing this service runs into millions of dollars. And so smaller rural communities, you know, have it difficult, you know, to be able to get this service, to get cable service, which I think is one reason why some find satellite successful, because they can drop those in, you know, all over the place. Suddenlink over the years, as Byron indicated, has invested millions and millions of dollars in infrastructure. Their wires are on our poles, and of course that's why we get paid, is they're in effect leasing our poles from us to hang their equipment on. To provide this service, you know, although we call it cable, it's actually above ground, a big chunk of it, except for the inroads where it comes in. Because we don't have people beating down our door to bring new service in here, our options are limited. And so what we have to do is we have to go through a negotiation with somebody that already has the investment here, and try to work with them to get the best product at the best price that we can. And it goes back to, Gene, your economics class, you know, about the laws of supply and demand. And I regret, you know, that because we don't have a whole lot of competitors wanting to come in because of the investment in infrastructure, to a degree, we're at their mercy as it relates to pricing, to a degree. And I want to be very clear about that, and there's really no way to sugarcoat it. So what we have to do as a council, every time these contracts come around, is work hard to negotiate, a price that is as low as possible, for our citizens, and still allow suddenly to recoup the investment that they have, in our community. I was talking to Mary earlier before this session ever got started, and if this council, not that this is a done deal, but if we just elected to say, you know what, Suddenlink is overpriced, the service isn't any good, we don't get any support when we call the office. They already all but closed down their local office, although they do have somebody that you can go down and get equipment through. But when you look in the phone book, you get the 800 number, and Byron, I suppose you're calling down to Texas somewhere for the call center,
Right.
which doesn't feel good. We just don't have them waiting in line for wanting to bring another service in and make the investment. And so, out of luck is one way of putting it. One thing that I would like to encourage this council to do as we go through this process and work with Byron and his company is to continue like we have year after year over these multi-year contracts, to do our best to secure reasonable pricing to the extent that we can, and reasonable service and a reasonable product. Gene, I remember well when when all the great channels that I wanted to see were no longer on basic. You had to go to some sort of premium package, that was just a product of the change in times. And I'm not saying that I like it or anybody else around this council, likes it either. If there was a way that we could, Byron doesn't want to hear this, but if there was a way that we can encourage competition, we would. But the point that I want you to understand, all of you here tonight, is to get that concept of the dollars that they've invested and what it would take, the dollars that it takes for another company to come in and set up shop in Perry. And it just, for 900 accounts, to some of us, that might seem like a whole lot. But if you take the expenses that they have for providing this service and multiply it by 900, they're going to go into communities where there's 900,000 to make their investment over a town that's got 900. And so we want to listen to you, and Dixie has taken extensive notes, and as we go through this process, we are going to be, as we did 7 years ago, and Betty, you and I were a part of that. Betty, you and I were a part of that. We had very, very much the same comments, and we worked, and at that time it had a lot to do with Stillwater and Enid getting channels that we weren't getting. Back then, that was a big deal. And really Suddenlink didn't have any reason to make those new additional channels available to us. And what we centered on was an agreement where, look, just make them available, and regrettably, for those that could afford to pay the premium packages, they could get the additional channels. And that was the compromise. But it's just on the basic service, which runs, what, Gene, what'd you say, $60 a month, $63?
It's about $63 a month now.
Yeah.
Went up $5 within the last few months.
That's basic expanded? Okay. You multiply that by 900, if everybody was just on that plan, which they're not. There are many in the community that are on the higher end of it. But if everybody was on there, the return for Suddenlink is just not that great. Nor would it be all that great for Cox, if they were in our community, or et cetera. So, as the mayor, I probably won't repeat what you called it, but I concur. Fair enough? Okay.
Chuck, I'd like to say one thing. I think by coming to this meeting, I found out two important things. One thing was that the city does benefit from the revenue, and of course we all know that if the city gets revenue, why, that helps keep our utility costs and everything else down, because you have to operate. And I think the other thing, I was very surprised that there was that low number of people that were on it, and I understand, as being in business myself in past years, that that does make a big difference. I would just assume it'd be 2 or 3 times that amount, so. I think I can look at it a little bit more understanding than what I did before. I still think it seems like a lot of money, and service hasn't been too great lately, but I think she's maybe gonna help me out a little bit with a problem I had, so.
Good. Thank you. Betty, did you have a comment?
Well, I think a lot of people think the city's making this $40,000 and it's basically not going to the city, it's going to Penn, so that we have 2 channels on TV. It's one of the few towns that have public TV for their local TV. So, Channel 19 is because of that. It costs us about that much to run it.
Yeah, and that's important to the community, I think.
Yeah.
Gordon?
My comment is, I'm with one of the other providers, and they've got their issues too. I have blackouts at times, or the programming changes midstream, and I want to go on suicide watch. But it's not uncommon to the other providers also. There's none of them that can provide perfect service 24/7. It's a tough market.
Karen, one quick funny, you mentioned the loss of the OU Texas game, and then you called Texas
Yeah.
to talk about help. Is God my witness? My call went to him.
Thank you.
My call went to him, and I said, I along with a few others are ready to wring your neck. And so, anyway, there was a bunch of calls that went out that day. You're right. Mary, you want to comment?
Well, I've been with the city of Perry for a short time. I'm familiar with Suddenlink because I worked with Byron in Stillwater. And he's been always very good to sit down and visit. And at one point in time, you know, he had to come and appear at meetings at City Hall, and he did so and was very helpful in explaining things. But from someone that's been, you know, hasn't been with this organization for very long, I would admit that over the years, in another community, watching what Perry was able to negotiate with the cable providers, I was pretty envious. I thought that Perry came out and fared very well in the negotiations, and so, you know, I'm not saying, you know, that Bryce is the best or anything like that, but he does know his cable. He does know cable. And the one thing that I would say that's so frustrating is that, you know, the federal government, Congress, has really limited what we can regulate and you know, what we can do. But I would say that Byron's always been very good to come to the table and listen, and he has to work up through his chain of command just like any other business. You know, he's not the one that makes those decisions. He has to go up to his supervisors and their supervisors, and it has to be something that is the cost benefit is there, and they are a for-profit organization. And you know, and so I've worked with numerous cable providers over the years, and I would have to say Byron has probably been one of the best ones to work with. So, you know, and I don't want to say it's a done deal or anything like that, but to me, it is frustrating that we can't have more influence over certain aspects of the cable service. But we will do our best to visit and relay the concerns when we sit down with the cable company.
Karen?
I would like to have Byron's phone number also.
Should we just put it up on Penn?
And the other thing is, all these years I thought I was supporting the city of Perry. We're underground, so we don't have poles. How does that work?
Well, it's covered under the entire franchise agreement,
Okay.
which is if
Count
5%
the household.
5% of the gross, depending on the households, no matter whether it's underground or above ground.
Okay.
So, great question though.
Mr. Mayor. Back here, sorry.
Oh, my gosh, I thought
Is it to my understanding to make the apparent people here present aware that you were mentioning that if we were to happen to disagree on the fact of Suddenlink being our provider, what would our options be, considering we do not have that competition knocking down our door? Would we be stuck on satellite?
Currently, those are your options, is to go with satellite, and I can't overemphasize enough. Unless you've worked in this, you can't understand the size of investment that these companies make, in the community. And I know I'm repeating, but it's just not worth it to these companies unless they've been here to start all over with 900 as a max number, still having to compete with what's going wireless, in this world.
Which is another thing that I also came out from learning from this tonight, was that I actually was surprised that a town of 5,000 people, only 900 of us, 900 is what's providing Suddenlink their business.
Right.
The rest of them satellite. I've had my doubts with satellite. I've had everything. I'd rather stick a pole up.
Now, to put it in perspective, and I guess this is one way to look at it, while we might have a population of 5,000, our meter number runs about 2,200. So that gives you an idea of how many households we have, or businesses, households and businesses. And so a little less than half of what we believe to be households and businesses in the community are using Suddenlink services. Another way to look at it, you can't necessarily compare the number of people to the actual, actual families or businesses using the service.
Is it possible that the number is low because of the quality that they're getting?
I think,
because of the way that we're treated on the telephone?
I think in all honesty, and I'm trying to be honest with you, I think it can be a combination of multiple things. I think it could be some's perception of the price, yes, definitely. I think it could be some's perception of the customer service standard. I think it could be somebody's perception of the quality. I mean, certainly. And in a tough economy, we all have to make decisions too on what is value, what's important to us when we're trying to pinch pennies. And I believe some of it may have to do with people just, simply they would prefer to put food on the table than to have cable television. And I think that's a real possibility too. Even if the cable television was $20 a month, you're going to see cuts there just based on the economic conditions. So I think it'd be misrepresentation to tell you that it's not some form of any of those things that we ask, depending on who you are and what your situation is. From a pricing standpoint, look, it may be hard to believe because we don't have, competition does make a big difference. It certainly, and it has a big difference on, on pricing. And while it may feel unreasonable, what you're paying now, across the Oklahoma market, it falls right in line. What we're paying now falls right in line with many of the communities much bigger than ours, in size. So it may not, is that a true statement? It may not feel good. I understand it. But I think we're doing the best that we can to provide an option to our citizens for cable service when otherwise it may not be available to us.
I think a
Fair
lot
enough
of
was
people,
my answer.
I think a lot of people want some of the other TV companies too, because they think they can get more channels. But I generally watch 5 or 6 channels, and that's about it anyway.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, my wife and I are both in our mid-80s. We're not computer literate, though we have a computer. But I sure do like to sit down and play solitary on it, and that's all it's used for. Now, is there any way to cut that from a full,
Do you have it on the internet?
yeah, it's on the internet, but can you get that where you can play the games on it without going on the internet?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can. How many games do you want?
I sit down about 2 hours every day and play solitary on that thing, and it relaxes me, makes me feel better.
And actually, I think unless you're playing competitively against somebody else, your solitaire game actually should be a standard installation on your system. You don't even have to be plugged into the internet.
I'm talking to you. All I need is my game and I'm
Now,
happy.
I doubt you're paying for internet service through Suddenlink. I would be surprised listening to your story. Maybe
Maybe I'm wrong,
You
maybe
can't get
I'm
it, you
not.
can't get it for $63, man. That's the
Huh?
truth of it.
Maybe having it on his telephone.
Yeah, you might be getting it through your cell phone. Maybe you plug your cell phone in?
No.
No, his AT&T service, you can bundle your.
Yeah,
No.
okay. I doubt you're getting their cable internet. But, especially for, hey, Byron, if he's getting cable for $63, I wanna talk to you.
I want his number.
Yeah. Tyson, let's just go ahead and put that up on screen. Okay, we'll get refocused here. As everybody had an opportunity to speak in a public meeting that wanted to speak, everybody had an opportunity. I want to grant you every opportunity. All the council members had an opportunity to speak and get your questions addressed. Byron, are you done?
I'm done.
Oh, that's probably
Unless there's
safe.
any more questions.
Okay.
That was
All
my
right,
last
then-
thing I just said a while ago.
Then with that, I'm going to adjourn the public hearing. I'm going to adjourn the public hearing. And we're going to move to item number 12. Okay? Thank you, council, for your indulgence. Item number 12, consider the zoning and planning matters pertaining to Harry and Mabel Hughes application. We have several things related to this, but not the least of which is to address the rezoning request. I'll give you just a second for the room to clear. Thank you, folks, for coming out. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Gene.
Thanks for allowing me to open my voice. Open my mouth.
It's important. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Learned a lot.
You're gonna be talked about since you parked in front of the jail.
Chief, you better make sure he gets
Could
in
you
the car.
escort him to his car?
Yeah, he picked the wrong time to walk out, didn't he?
They all followed him.
Well, that cleared the room. Okay, so we're on item number 12, which is consider the zoning and planning matters pertaining to Harry and Mabel Hughes. And of course, we have the Hughes family that are here this evening. Item number A is really the approval of the ordinance 2013-04, changing the zoning from C1 to C2. We're actually going to be discussing and talking about, Gordon, didn't make the last meeting, but we're actually going to be talking about and whether or not to approve the site plan review as it relates to the other aspect of this under item number B.
Okay.
The discussion of item number A is whether or not to approve the zoning change from C1 to C2. And just to remind you, before we did the new maps and just unilaterally changed zoning, this was Mr. Hughes would have been in the correct zoning, prior to the change in the maps. It was changed to C1 whenever we did the blanket change. He's back in requesting that he be approved for C2, along with, and continued in that, and Bryce would correct me if I was wrong, included in that is the use by review for its use being for a commercial warehouse facility and contractor equipment and material storage and maintenance yard, okay? Now that doesn't address the surfacing for the overflow parking. We're talking about the actual use of the change in the C1 to C2.
Can we take this item 12 then as approval of each separate A and B?
Yes.
Well, I'd make a motion for the approval of 12A for the change in zoning.
I'll second that.
Okay,
I think just for the note, we would note that the parties have agreed to that 6 foot, the fence on the east part of the property and also the north part of the property. We talked about that at the last meeting. That didn't come out of the planning commission, but it is a requirement under that use by review for contractor yards which face streets or parks.
Would that not be under B?
No, that's under A.
That's under A.
So
Yeah, I
you're,
understand.
so you're fine with
Yeah.
your motion, as long as we have an understanding, and I think we do.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance as presented this evening. That's item number 8, it's ordinance 2013-04. Questions or comments?
What tract of land exactly are we talking about?
Do we have a defined tract of land? Harry, excuse me for using it first, maybe I should, Mr. Hughes, maybe it's more appropriate. When Tim was here last, we were talking about a 1 acre tract, and I think we had several questions asking that to be defined. Maybe you could give some clarification on what we're talking about.
Well, you're talking about the size?
The size of the actual area for which we're rezoning.
Yes, it's probably, it's less than an acre. It's 125 by 75.
Does that,
Excludes the building.
I was just saying, we tabled last time, that was the reason we tabled, I thought, was so that we could get a copy of that contract and know exactly what the piece of property was.
Harry, are you talking about from the back side of the building
Yes.
to the street?
No, from the back side of the building to the end of the gravel is about 125 by 75.
Okay,
That's just the gravel part.
okay. But the rezoning would encompass the building, right?
Yes,
That's right,
correct.
absolutely.
Yes.
So what we're talking about is currently where he has the gravel, and we're gonna be discussing what he can use that for in item B.
The rezoning ordinance goes to the entire tract of property.
And that's my personal thing, that it should,
In fact,
we should
in
just
fact,
pick a little
if you
piece
go
out
to
of the middle.
tab 12, okay, there's the legal. Okay,
Well-
for the entire tract of property, okay? That's what the rezoning goes for.
And that's gonna be all that Mr. Hughes owns behind the Walmart facility.
It'll all be
That's correct.
rezoned.
It'll all be
C2.
rezoned and.
So you're talking, we're talking from 15th Street all the way west
Yes.
to the back side of the property? Okay.
Yes, it's all gonna be rezoned. With reference to the site plan, that's where Marvin's talking about what is the detail. The detail in the lease, as I understand, is nothing, it's a map with a.
That's gonna be part B, right?
That's right.
That's gonna be part B, and, you know, we're gonna have to make, if you get a motion on part B, it's gonna have to be contingent upon several things already. One is the ordinances in pass, we have some other contingencies to talk about. One of them is gonna be to define that tract in a meets and bounds description, so
Okay,
I just wanted that to be clear.
This is,
you comfortable now?
I'm
this is by Jimmy
comfortable,
Spillman.
at least on part A.
Right.
I have
Bill?
2 questions. One, Mr. Mayor, when you was reading what he could use it, you was giving a description of what he's gonna put in that building. If we
No,
read,
what we're approving the zoning used to be.
okay, all right.
Part B.
Well, so if, as long as he stays within the limitations of what C2 is, he can put any of that stuff, store it in that warehouse, correct? All right. 2, I would like to know what the fence is gonna look like. I mean, are you guys gonna put like a privacy fence? Is that what they're thinking? Or what?
Yes, in opaque fence, we talked about metal panels, so it wouldn't have to, need to be, you know, painted, but, you know, premium metal panels, which would obscure at least 6 foot high. On the east side, probably slide with a gate, and on the north side.
Now, they do have chain link, excuse me, they have chain link that has lath in there.
I've seen those.
That is attractive and it's, you know,
Yes.
it's not an ugly thing. And that's what I would suggest we use there.
I just wondered, I didn't know what you meant, if it's gotta be a privacy style, like you can't see in there, or if it just had to be a chain link fence.
I haven't read that part of the code a whole lot. I don't think it's our call. It's entirely theirs, just like, as long as it's screened.
It's to screen.
That's right.
Which is
Okay.
to,
And it can
Well,
be.
that's the way I
can be
read it. I wanted to
landscaped.
make sure that's what we were,
Yeah.
what screen meant, is all I was asking.
That's right. Good questions. Any additional questions? We have a motion and a second, but I want to spend as much time on this as you need. Additional questions? Comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance 2013-04, changing zoning from C1 to C2 for the tire blocker property, and approving the use by review permitting a commercial warehouse, public and private utility of contractor equipment, and multiple storage and maintenance yards, along with the completion of a 6-foot-high fence for suitable landscape screening. Okay? Yes vote approves the ordinance, no vote denies it. Further questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Yes. Now a motion on the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second on the emergency. It's not debatable. Roll call, please.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Wade. Oh,
Yes. All right, now we'll move to item number B, which is to discuss and approve the site plan review. Bryce, do you want to run down through what is site plan review?
Well, we got a recommendation from the planning commission. And, you know, I guess where, and I, as you remember, I didn't attend the planning commission meeting, so I didn't have the benefit of that discussion. But, you know, the planning commission talked about two issues. One, they talked about the ordinance that we passed. Had a hearing on that and made a recommendation to approve that. And secondly, they made a recommendation to approve this property, the site plan on this property. Now, when it came to us, with the passage of that ordinance, the problem came up that the ordinance only permits that kind of rock for overflow parking. Okay, and it appeared as though that the use that would be made on this property, okay, when you take the route of the trucks and how they're gonna actually use this property is the trucks will come in to the north side, will pull behind the west side of the building, okay? They will then be loaded at that point outside the building with forklifts, dollies. They will be loaded there, and then they will pull back out around the building and then out to the front. That portion on the west side of the building is not paved, okay, and that is going to be a traveled surface, a driveway. You know, that's not really going to have a overflow parking use. I mean, the main use for that is going to be loading and driving. And if you go out there, and we did today, there were ruts out on, you know, in that property, some of the deep ruts where the trucks had been, and we're at least afraid that if some of that doesn't get concreted, that it's going to be a difficult operation. So this kind of amends what the agenda says, okay? But you know, we're here to recommend that a portion of that west part where the trucks will be loaded, unloaded, and where they will travel to come back out is concreted. I believe that you have spoken to Mr. Hughes about that.
I have.
And why don't you speak to that?
I was able to speak with Mr. Hughes this afternoon, spent a few minutes visiting with him. I think I was trying to call him at the same time he was trying to call me. I got a busy signal, and so anyway, I headed over to his office, and I don't know, it's funny just how things work out the way they do. But anyway, we were able to visit, shared with him our concerns about the vehicles. And I don't know if you've had a chance to go out there and see, you know, where those vehicles are already, you know, the rock is compacting and it's rutting a little bit. And
The rock won't pack because we have no moisture, you know, just.
But anyway, I expressed concern to him, and that I felt like it was, you know, I asked him to consider, you know, extending the concrete on the west side of the building. I threw out the number 30 feet. I don't know if that's a good number or a bad number, but to me that I felt like that would allow for 2 vehicles to park there, be loaded, unloaded, whatever the case may be, or if they're parked there overnight, they can be parked there on the concrete. And so we talked about that a little bit. I think, I think Mr. Hughes, was receptive to that, and I know that, it's becomes a matter of economics on a lease that right now is only for 1 year. And I think he was hoping to make contact with the tenant to hopefully get a longer commitment from the tenant, which I can certainly understand if he's gonna invest, in the concrete. But I think Mr. Hughes was open to that, and I don't wanna speak for him, so, he needs to be the one. But we had a good conversation, I thought.
I'm confused. Are they already using the building? Because you both commented that the trucks are already running through there and rutting it.
Coil Chem does have a temporary occupancy permit.
In my drive-by of this thing,
City manager, she can do anything she wants.
And it honestly, we spent a lot of time with the planning commission that apparently meant nothing. That's kind of my thoughts on that.
No, it really did not mean anything, because Coil Chem was extremely hesitant. I don't think they occupied, if they've moved in there, it's been very recent. I don't know when it was, but they were very hesitant to actually take occupancy of the building. But I felt like it was important to show that we were business friendly, and that if they wanted to move in, they could, but it was their risk to take, and if it was not approved, they knew they would have to vacate. So.
could I speak, please? Yes, sir, please.
A matter of economics, if I got bids for concrete, $68,000, and I'm getting $650 a month, could never, ever pay out the concrete. And I didn't realize our zoning had changed, that's why we put the rock down in the first place. And I'll do whatever I possibly can, within reason, to do what the council says.
Could I ask you a question about, do they access the gravel from off of your existing concrete
Yes.
pad?
Yes.
They drive through the concrete
They drive on
driveway?
the concrete and circle out around the building and on the concrete to go out.
Okay. And so they're on gravel all the way?
In the circle, yes.
Okay.
Now, they only have 2 one-ton pickups with a trailer, and the total length of them is about 35 foot lengthwise. Our building is 60 feet long. Whenever they pull behind there, unless somebody gets up there in that driveway, they're not even gonna be able to see the vehicle anyhow.
So it's not semis or anything
No,
like that?
no. And they told me that they do this on these industrial, or these
Okay, thank you.
long
Good.
frac jobs, and they said sometimes them pickups are not there for a month. This is the story they told me.
How do they, just so I understand how it works, someone brings a chemical in and leaves it there, and then they load it and transport it out?
I'm assuming that they haul it and stack it in there for storage, and then they load it up and leave. And some of the frac jobs are taking like 3 weeks or a month of constant stuff.
So they have a supplier, I guess, that drops it off there, I'm presuming?
I'm assuming.
Are there additional questions?
Well, I have a comment to make. If you're talking about rutting, if it's rutting in the rock, that's no big deal. If it's rutting in the soils below the rock, then that's a big deal. Then you got soft soils. But as you said, it's so dry and hard out there that it's not rutting in the soils.
Right.
Okay. Because the rock's gonna get scattered around like on a county road anyway by driving on it. It'll be up to those guys to maintain the rock surface by moving around with whatever they got to do with it. My point is that a rock parking lot is just that, a rock, it's a parking lot and it should be stable. When you start having movement on it, you're gonna move the rock around. And I don't see any issue with it. He'll see issue with it when we get a good soaking rain and that rock starts sinking into those soils. And then you're gonna have to do something about it.
Then I think our rock will pack.
We may have to add more rock.
Behind Walmart right there is rock.
Yeah.
And it is packed hard as a rock, hard as a rock.
Well, here's the point I want to make. We've got a parking lot right across the gym on Fur that is a gravel parking lot. It's been in service for a number of years. And it's still a nice parking lot. My nephew used it for his Eskimo snows every summer. And people drive through that all the time. I don't see any difference. We have allowed storage facilities to be built in this last term and put in gravel when we had a permeable pavement ordinance on the books. This council has done that, minus you. But we have 3 large storage facilities in this community that have been built since we had this ordinance, and they have gravel driveways and gravel parking. I don't think I should hold this gentleman to a different standard than we held our former mayor and our former city manager and other people who have developed these properties.
And it's a C too, also.
That's right, and it's C2.
And I might wanna make a comment too, about the 6-foot fence. I'm kinda curious, to me, a 6-foot fence looks worse than having seen a truck sitting there. I mean,
I agree.
I'm not sure that I would rather you just, I mean, if this becomes a problem and we decide that it doesn't look good, then we go back and have him put up a fence. But right now, I'm thinking, I'd rather see
I don't
the
think
trees
that's
back
our
there.
option.
That's
I think
part
that's
of
what
the
the,
code.
we need to rewrite the
That's part of
C2
the
code
code.
if that's, we're gonna do that.
C2 code requires it.
Not the least of which is we've already voted on that.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, that's already been done. The time for that discussion would have been about 5 minutes ago.
Well, sometimes, you know, you can kinda overlook some things like.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to make a comment. Just south of the property we're talking about, the company that I work for leases a lot from Mr. Hughes. And, you know, over the last, couple of years, you guys have worked really hard to clean it up and make it look really presentable. If you remember right, it started out being a meat market and then, a salvage yard, I don't know, but anyway, they worked hard to clean that lot up. And it is a gravel lot, and I know that it grandfathered into the ordinances, but they have been very diligent about, you know, if there's a problem, putting more rock down and, you know, making it all cleaned up and make it, you know, look nice for us. So I doubt that there's gonna be a problem with talking about roughing stuff up, that they wouldn't come in and make every attempt to fix it. But, that's just kind of my take of the deal. I do know that there'll be some larger trucks coming in and out of there than this truck we're talking about. And
The delivery trucks.
the delivery trucks. And so it's very important that the surface is able to hold that up. But like everyone said, it's not gonna be solid until we get some kind of moisture for that rock to sink in, you know.
Gordon, are you okay with, this isn't a trick question, it's straight up. Are you okay with setting a precedent that C2 zoning is acceptable to have rock drives? That all C2 zoning is acceptable to have rock drives?
My humble opinion, yes. because we got it right now and have approved it.
This council has approved rock drives.
Look at Mr. Olmsted's place.
Yeah, we did that.
Was it C2?
Storage facility.
I don't know if it's,
I don't think
I
it's
can't remember if it's
C2.
C2 or C1.
I think, yeah, I think it's.
If it's storage, it would need to be for commercial is it a warehouse or?
Yes.
It would need to be C2.
Well, no, it's mini storage. It's
They
mini
still
storage.
need to be C2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
C2.
I would love to see the approaches to any stores like there are here at this building. I'm comforted in the fact that we come off our street onto a concrete driveway and concrete aprons to the north and south side of the doors of this warehouse. And that they leave the concrete onto the gravel and then re-enter the concrete from the gravel. That comforts me from a paving standpoint. And what I really would like to see, if we're gonna make an ordinance, or we gotta define it more specifically to warehouse parking, storage, not just overflow parking. This is a loading, unloading zone and probably a storage area for this warehouse. And that to me does not need to be paid. If we put a pipe yard out there, would it need to be paid? If it was a welding supply, would that need to be paid? In my opinion, it does not. Now, I don't want to see everything developed downtown and maybe C2 with a gravel lot. But I don't think that would happen with the people who invest in commercial downtown, commercial type businesses. But we have a lot of, I think we're gonna have a lot of requests of this nature coming in that won't be out in our industrial park where we're gonna put rock. And if we're gonna hold it to have him invest $65,000 to $70,000 on 30 more feet of concrete, then we've got to put it down in writing that covers these situations.
Well, it would kind of currently, drives, and if you're gonna store materials, and that has to be on permanently surfaced, okay? But you're exactly right, the ordinance we passed was, the opening was overflow parking. And if you feel that it should be something other than overflow parking, that it can in proper instances include drives and can include, storage areas, that we're gonna need to go back and amend the ordinance.
No, I'd rather keep the driveways, the entries from our street be pavement.
Right.
But the actual storage area could be rock. That is, from the curb or the edge of the street to the property line should be pavement.
We don't address that in the
No,
ordinance that
we
we
don't.
that we passed. And we have reason to believe that we probably need to revisit that ordinance anyway, right?
Yeah, I suppose what you could hold is that, it really is parking, it really is overflow parking. They've already told you that there's enough parking, there's enough paved parking. And you could hold that the traveling is just incidental to the parking and loading, for purposes of this application. But
And we're gonna get into a case-by-case situation every time.
that's what it all is.
Yeah, if we
Which is
don't
what
get-
use by review's all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah,
So it addresses, Gordon, what you're talking about, that look, we may not want this downtown,
Right.
but in this particular application, the council may think it fits.
Well, that's my opinion, I
Right.
believe.
The other thing is to, Harry, to address, I know a question that Marvin will follow through with, and I just enjoy beating to it, is the actual dimensions of what we're talking. Now we're to the point where we're not talking about rezone, and we're not talking about the whole piece of property. We're talking about the building and the rock.
Right.
And defining, if we're seeking approval, having to be able to define with legal description of where we're allowing the rock to be, if in fact this comes to motion. Can you present that to us tonight.
Well, which means you need to get Jimmy Spillman to give us a legal description.
Do what?
Well, they
I
actually, I
thought they
think
did, I
they,
thought they had
They
that.
got all that.
You've done a broad one.
but they have a contract with the,
Yeah, I
the
was
legal one
told.
is what Tim told us.
Oh, okay.
Planning.
Does your contract have the legal description of what they're leasing on it?
Tim has a contract, and he can go today too.
Yeah, I know, but I don't, I've asked for that multiple times. He hasn't been able to produce a legal description of what they leased from you. Have you had it surveyed to include the building and where you rocked? And have a legal description?
We just measured it all.
Yeah, I didn't think that was the case. Now, we could probably do it by measurement.
Yeah, you told us the size of the gravel area, what was that?
125 by,
Is it 75 or 125?
It's 75 by 125.
that's the rock area.
That's the rock area behind the building.
To the west.
Just the rock. Yeah.
To the west.
It goes
Yeah.
Rest of the building.
Yeah, but there is
125
some-
north and south?
But there is some rock to the south of the building too.
Well, no, the south of the building is concrete,
Yeah.
back to the rock.
Well, I know we drove on rock today.
Well, no, south.
No,
On the
south.
On the north end of the building and the south end of the building.
There's a, on the south end of the building, there's a concrete approach, but there's rock on the south side of the building.
That's probably the alleyway or the.
Well, like 25 feet from the edge of the concrete.
West of the building to the south is rock.
West of the
West of the
building,
building, but if you go to the west side of the building and you got concrete from the south clear to the north. There is concrete on the south of the building,
I
the
know there's
width of the
concrete.
building.
There's no rock on the south side of the building?
No.
No,
Okay.
No.
no, there isn't.
I don't know what the heck I was driving on.
You were past the west side of the building before you got on the concrete, or got on the gravel.
I was past the,
Gravel starts at the west side of the building.
I understand that, right, I'm very, yeah, and it goes back west.
Yeah.
But if I go to the south side of the building to go get back onto 15th Street, I gotta drive on some gravel.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Dude,
if
don't
you
you
go
know?
around the building and come back,
South side of the building, there's rock, right?
south side of the building, there's no rock.
You get back on concrete on the south
From the,
side.
from the west edge of the building west, there's rock.
I understand that.
So you're saying as you come around, it'd be like the southwest corner of the building.
Oh, well,
In front.
okay. The point is, we've gotta get it defined, and is it, are we comfortable with 125 by 75? I don't, that covers, that's what you'll be fencing.
Yes.
But then we gotta include,
Building.
the building too. Well, actually, we just gotta approve of what we're gonna allow to rock, where we're gonna allow rock to be. So if you're comfortable with 125 by 75, then we have our number.
You've got it right here with Jimmy Spillman. Have you plot here?
What?
He didn't show the gravel.
No,
No,
yeah,
he's
because
not- he's
if you
showing
go
the
by
buildings.
what's here, you're not gonna have anything west of the building.
Right, we need to reflect the gravel,
Yeah, yeah.
which is west and south.
It is concrete. Where you get this.
Oh, yeah, on approach, coming out of the building, over that door.
That's what it is, 125. That's the length.
I can tell you, I'm not very comfortable going with dimensions, because we kinda need to know exactly where the dimensions start and end. If you know what I mean. Because the 125 by 75 can be moved around to some extent.
Well, we can adopt, actually, that, you all don't have the hand drawing that Harry did, do you? Do you have the hand drawing?
Don't think so.
You don't have that? Bryce, see if we can adopt that as an exhibit, which clearly reflects the location of the rock.
Well, I don't think there's a problem. I can provide for a legal description that provides for the rock. I mean, you know, we can talk about the point, the beginning, and the,
They driving on that, that's dirty.
no, that's the road easement there. They're coming in.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just like you said.
All right.
But, I mean, I can provide for a legal description. That's not gonna be a
Well,
problem.
his statement was that the rock starts at the edge of the concrete.
And it does.
And the
And
back
it
of the
does.
building goes 75 feet to the west.
Where you going, Russ?
175 feet.
You gotta stand up for a minute. You guys, my butt doesn't tolerate 2 hours and 30 minutes a second.
I'm in the quarterback position, you know?
Additional questions that we have on the, as it relates to the site plan review. Okay, what would you like to do with it?
If, you know, if you like what Gordon said, you just approve with the planning commission. You know, the recommendation that they gave us.
And, you know, I hate to keep beating a dead horse, but that, we tabled this at the last meeting, waiting on that legal description. And here we are, we could have done this last meeting. That's my thinking.
Well, but there were the other issues were first of all, we didn't have Gordon. Okay, secondly, we talked about overflow parking. Okay, and the question is whether we were going to permit driving, offloading, onloading on it. And, you know, the rest of it is yes. I have to admit, Marvin, that we were supposed to get a legal, I think it was requested, we haven't gotten it, and I didn't do one.
Well, and Jimmy's been ill. I know this is fact. Jimmy and I are friends. He has been very ill and been out of town.
But we can certainly, I mean, we can certainly get it. Any motion that you make is gonna have to be conditional upon the effective date of the ordinance, which I think was February 11th.
Right. At no charge, I'll go out and measure that gravel lot and tie it to the building. I'll do that.
Very good.
I'll do it.
You get the docs.
So what kind of a recommendation? Just need to approve the zoning?
No, I think you
We've done that,
approved
man.
the planning commission
Wake up, man. We've done
recommendation.
that.
You approved the planning commission
That's what it says down
recommendation.
here on the bottom of.
On B, you want to approve,
You've
you're
already
looking to
done it.
approve the site plan review. Then to approve the site plan review, subject to the implementation of the effective date of the ordinance, which is February the 11th.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll make that.
We have a motion,
Second.
and we have a second. And the motion is, I'll make an attempt to repeat it. The motion is approval of the site plan review, subject to the implementation of the ordinance.
And also subject to the legal, which Gordon is gonna create.
Subject to the legal and the ordinance to go into place on February the 11th.
If y'all like to see my license, I'll show it to you.
No, those are
We don't want to see
Time in a
it.
specific place.
I'll get it.
We know it's counterfeit.
Okay, let's stay focused here. We've got a motion and a second. Are there other questions, comments, concerns before we move to a vote? Seeing none, votes in order.
Stroller,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Duke,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nation,
Yes.
Warner. Yes. Hall.
Yes. All right, Eric, congratulations.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question before we go on?
Yep.
I know it should have been asked earlier. Where exactly will your fence, it'll be across the front side, but will it go right on the edge of the gravel? Or, I know there's a kind of a road cut back there, it'll be on the north side of the road?
It'll be on the south side of the road,
Okay, next to the gravel.
there, and just right across, the front is only
Okay.
like 30 feet or something
Yeah.
like that. And that will screen everything from view.
I agree.
Okay. You act like you were going to speak, you know? Okay. All right, we'll move to item number 13. Council members, the agenda item that's in front of you is to consider approval of ordinance 2013-05, amending Chapter 6 of the Perry Municipal Code by the repeal of Section 13201D concerning the composition of the fire department, the repeal of 13305 concerning the composition of the police department. When this agenda was made public, it didn't dawn on me until I received some calls from several of the fire and police unions of concern that we were talking about issues of this nature, and nobody said anything then first. I felt bad about that, because we should do a better job of educating them when it relates to issues, particularly on their on how many are able to serve in their departments. And so I called Mary and I said, Mary, with your permission, I'm going to pull this from the agenda until we have an opportunity to speak with both the unions about this and then bring it back for your consideration if it goes that far. So with your indulgence, I'd like to remove this from the agenda this evening.
Could we talk about it though first?
I really would hate to even talk about it until
Well, I was
we
just
work
kind of wondering what it is.
with our unions. I can give you, without being specific, let me
Okay.
tell you what it addresses. Prior to us being a charter form of government, we set certain maximum, we set, the council, led by the mayor at that time, because the mayor could make the personal decisions, set maximum numbers for how many people would be in a department, specifically the fire and the police. Over time, the department heads began to think that those weren't maximum numbers, that they were in fact minimum numbers. But we know as a council that at that time, the mayor and the council would make the decision based on funding of whether or not we could have that many people in a department. Now that we're a charter form of government, and you all have read the charter as closely as I have, all hiring decisions are the responsibility of the city manager. The funding for those positions comes from the budget that we approve.
Okay.
And so it becomes incumbent on us to look at that policy again and redraft it where it falls in line with the charter form of government. But there are questions related to how we adhere to those policies prior to changing that the unions have. They're justifiable questions, and we need to work those out with the unions and get them comfortable with the explanation. Now, Betty, that's not in complete detail, but that's 30,000 foot of what we were going to
Well,
discuss
that's
tonight.
because when I looked through there, it just looked like everything had been crossed out, that's why.
Right,
Just
well,
kinda
the
curious.
intent was to remove any reference that would lead anybody to believe that we're making minimum staffing requirements.
Okay.
Because no staffing requirement can be made without the funding. And the funding has to come from this body,
Okay.
okay? And so yes, when you looked at it, it does remove all references to minimum staffing requirements. Okay? So that's what that was about. But we need to talk to the unions about it, and on behalf of the negotiating team, I think we all apologize to the unions for not first talking with them and making them aware of of our concerns prior to posting it as an agenda item. So we'll remove that and handle that in an appropriate manner. As far as the item number 14, new business. Any new business needs to come before the body? New business. Item number 15, we will not be needing an executive session tonight. I do want to call your attention to one matter as it relates to executive session. Bryce, if I get off track here, let me know. In your packet, you have a contract with 3S. That contract, since it was placed in your packet, has been amended, okay? It has been amended and not approved by 3S at this point. I'm going to have the clerk pass out the amended 3S contract, and we're going to give you until the next meeting to review that at your convenience before we go into executive session and discuss it. Fair enough?
You're gonna have to look real hard to find the changes. 'cause
Yeah, they're not
it's
big,
just a
they're
couple of
little.
words, you
But I
know.
didn't want you to confuse what's in your packet to what we're handing out tonight. This way you have an opportunity to read it in detail, get comfortable with it, we'll discuss it at the next meeting, okay?
I can't wait to go home and read this.
I will tell you, and I can tell you without going into executive session, that 3S does have a copy of this, and as a practical purpose, they agree with this contract, but we don't have a signed contract.
So they're still pretty warm then?
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
What'd you say?
They're still warm.
Okay.
They didn't head to Mexico yet.
No, they haven't headed to Mexico.
Let me take-
We have a birthday cake. Bryce and Russ and I share birthdays. We're all exactly 10 years apart in age. I'll let you guess who's who. But Bryce is the oldest.
Russ is the.
And Russ is the youngest. And we have.
And Russ is the best looking too.
That's
so-
right. And the staff was kind enough to get us some birthday cake, and we brought birthday cake in the conference room if you want to have some great homemade.
Is everybody on
birthday
TV,
cake.
or they invited down?
Yeah, they can come down too. And then, and when they come down.
We were gonna invite everybody that came tonight for the meeting, and we started counting heads going, man, I hope it's not gonna work out before we have time to cake.
And when they come down, we'll give them Byron's telephone number too. All right, let's move to item number 18, please.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion second, adjourn, roll call.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.